Welcome to the Cirrus Research Foundation series. In this episode, led by our senior analyst, Georgiana Fung, she walks through interpreting the Cirrus Signals Report. And so the Signals Report is effectively our asset allocation work. It's got homegrown models in there that looks at equities versus bonds, large caps versus small caps, growth versus value, and a number of other indicators. What we find, and this is exactly, I think, the right stage for the Foundation series, is that we need macro reports and strategy reports. They can get a lot more dense than the average, let's say, single stock report, just because the data can come from such more remote places, all packed into one place. And so we thought this was a great opportunity to walk you through how to use the Signals Report properly, walk you through some intuitive understandings of it. And at this point, let me turn it over to Georgiana Fung. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction, Sacha. This is Georgiana Fung of Cirrus Research. In this portion of the Foundation series for interpreting our Signals Report, I will cover is building blocks and the implications for the market. Jumping right in, the Signals Report covered 5 tactical allocation and risk models spanning from asset class, size, style, risk appetite, to market crowding. Now, the last 2 of our indicators were covered previously in the Foundation's video, and you'll see them on our website. We like to think of each indicator as control for a given investment portfolio or even a strategy. Should it be allocating more to equities or fixed income, more to large cap or small caps, more to growth or value, or even talk about risk in the market? It may provide some insights for factor performance or even performance of groups with certain characteristics in the market, as you will see later in our presentation. With the first of our indicators, the Cirrus Context-Based Allocation Model, or the CCAM, is just as the name describes. It's a model based on the context of the market. What are the relative value of bonds versus equities? What's the risk backdrop of the equity market? Now, when fixed income spreads are wide and the risk backdrop is high, we allocate more bonds. So at the moment, we see that nearly all the CCAM components are pointing to equities, resulting in a 69% equity allocation and 31% to bonds. And that's because bond spreads are relatively tight right now, and the risk is low in the equity market. Turning to the CTSP, or the Cirrus Tactical Size Premium Model, it looks beyond the variables covered in the asset allocation model to include some of the equity fundamentals for size preference. You'll see that there are times that the models are rather neutral, and that's the dark gray shaded area in here. There are times that it may prefer small caps over large. You'll see in this light shade area. On the reverse, you might see it prefer large caps slightly over small caps. And there are times that the model may overwhelmingly prefer small caps over large, which we've seen in the past. So currently it is leaning towards large and even overweighting at the moment. Historically, you've seen with the model that there are times that it'll overweight small caps and you see small caps outperform. You also see that the model may not prefer small caps, in which case it had a buy large cap bias. You'll see small caps underperform. So right now we see that it has a large cap preference, and that's because bond spreads are relatively narrow and the profit cycle is peaking. So we do want to lean towards large caps at the moment. As for style, the CSO, which also called the Cirrus Style Oscillator, uses a combination of growth, valuation, interest rates, and credit cycle to determine a preference for growth versus value. So like the previous chart that you saw before, there is a neutral band, which is this dark shaded area where the model does not prefer either one. There are times that it will lean towards growth, which is at the moment the case. And on the reverse, there are times that it will lean towards value. And there are times that it will overwhelmingly overweight one, in this case, growth, over value. And we've seen in the past, it has leaned towards or even overweight value in the past. But currently, it is just leaning towards growth. And that's because of the strong top line growth that we see in the market and also the tight bond yield spreads. And within growth, we do have a preference for quality growth because as you see from the CRX, which is this indicator here, a declining risk appetite calls for a quality bias. So typically when you see a drop in the indicator, we'll see price momentum strategies faltering, and this is where qualities tend to shine. And lastly, we also look at risk in terms of market polarization or market crowding. And it's not a concern at the moment. Unlike in the past, we've seen it spike, and that's when you want to pull back on some of the momentum strategy and some of the groups with higher multiples. And we've covered the CPQ, which is this indicator, and the CRX, which is the last one that we had gone over in the Foundation series. This past one for the CPQ is on the website and was covered by Satya and Nick. And pretty much that wraps up the building blocks for the signals report and the implications for the market. So in summary, the signals report offers an overview of models in risk analytics covering asset class, size, style, and market risk backdrop. And beyond the typical allocation categories, our indicators are also useful for factor performance, like quality and momentum. We like to think of each indicator as a control for your investment portfolio or even strategy. This report goes out monthly and is also available on our website. And we also offer quick sound bites on our website's video library. And currently you can find it in this portion of the website. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please feel free to contact us at Cirrus if you have any questions or would like more details.